All power to the locomotors, yelled Princeps Chrysaor. Bring us into full cover. The Moderati below him nodded an affirmative and moved his hands deftly across the motive controllers of the Warlord Titan, Honoris Verax. A deep thrum reverberated through the Titan's superstructure as the reactor powered up, sending power to the war machine's legs. The Titan strode into the city, crushing the streets of Ithraca beneath its colossal feet. On my mark, full stop, and divert power to the shields, ordered the Princeps. Both Moderati nodded assent this time, then complied with the Princeps' instructions. Honoris Verax slowed, then planted both feet solidly in the ground. There was a distinctive whine as the shields powered up to their maximum capacity. From the outside, the Titan appeared to shimmer in the dawn light. Contact made, came a voice over the Vox. It was Seto, Princeps of the Reaver Titan Deliverance. Infernus marches against us. 2 Warlord class engines sighted, confirmed as Ardenti Dominus and Genna? Sending data now. A stream of information spooled across Chrysaor's command terminal. He took it all at a glance. He knew these god machines well. He had fought alongside them once. The fury of betrayal still burned deep inside him. Honoris Verax shared his anger, the temperature of the Titan's reactor rising as the Princeps relived the moment that Legio Suterova, now renamed the Legio Infernus, turned traitor. But Chrysaor did not have the time to reflect on past treacheries. More Infernus war machines were appearing on the Allspecs. Battle would soon be joined. Princeps Senioris Chrysaor of the Legio Praesagius moved his Warlord Titan into position, the huge war machine only a few hundred yards away from the Reaver Titans in his maniple. As the god machines drew closer, their void shields overlapped, forming one huge bubble of energy that sparked and cracked around them. To the east, Echocatus was enacting the same protocol, having moved to stand between Deliverance and Fortitudo Domitor. Their void shields merged with a distinctive snap. Chrysaor looked over his rearguard force. There was just 6 Titans and 7 Knights under his command. A small force, but hopefully they would be able to give the rest of the Legio Praesagius time to escape the guns of the traitorous Legio Infernus. The Princeps Senioris checked his many data terminals once again. His Titan were in position, but their guns were still coming online, their reactors cold. Knowing they had the upper hand, the Legio Infernus were pressing the advantage, firing at Chrysaor's battle group before they could fire back. Warning lights lit up his terminals as the first shots found their marks. Chrysaor watched, aghast, as shot after shot slammed into his Titans, every one of them bypassing their shields. He wondered, what madness had overcome the Legio Infernus? He would not have to wait long to find out. In the distance, Legio Infernus advanced. Princeps Zela of the Legio Infernus watched in anticipation as his battle groups advanced on the Legio Praesagius. To the east, Gehenna advanced alongside Leto and Cado. To the west, the Warhounds Ardio and Peruro were attempting to outflank the Legio Praesagius' commander. A sudden flash of light announced that Leto and Cadio were being shot at by a pair of Knights Porphyrion in the far distance. The Warhounds' void shield sparked furiously, then exploded, leaving the war machines vulnerable. Zalord did not have time to watch over his lesser charges, however. Nearby, the Warlord Titan Tenbris Proles was engaging Honoris Verax at long range, but the Legio Praesagius' Titans had combined their void shields, making them virtually impossible to penetrate. Zalor added the firepower of Igniculus, his own Titan, to the onslaught. The enemy's shield flared, and Zalor could feel the rage of their Titans as their reactors began to overheat. Yet, the Legio Praesagius were clearly not giving up without a fight. Several shots found Ardio and Peruro, but the majority of their firepower was aimed at Ignis Regim, which had advanced at full stride to get its plasma annihilators in range. With deadly precision, the Legio Praesagius targeted the Warlord's torso, their missiles shorting out the Titan's shields before their volcano cannons detonated its magazine. Ignis Regim disappeared in a colossal nuclear explosion. Chrysaor ordered his servitor Clades to make immediate repairs to Honoris Verax, while next to him, Sulis Vestra vought to reignite its shields. Their flank was taking the worst of the enemy fire. Following the destruction of Ignis Regim, the Legio Infernus were out for blood. Sending orders across the Vox, Chrysaor bade the Knights Porphyrion of House Vornher to engage the Warhound Titans, advancing up the centre of the battlefield. As their Magna las cannons tore the Warhounds apart, Chrysaor directed the firepower of his own maniple at the Warhounds, trying to outflank them. Several Knights of House Mordred were caught in the crossfire, but miraculously 2 of the Warhounds survived. Their return firepower was just enough to tear down the shields that protected the Legio Praesagius Titans. Almost immediately, warning messages began to appear on Chrysaea's MIU as the Legio Infernus Titans opened fire. Honoris Verax shuddered as it was hit by the volcano cannons of Tenebris Proles, the first shots causing critical damage to the Warlord Titan's torso, the second barrage disabling one of its own volcano cannons. Sulis Vestra suffered a far worse fate, however. Blasted from its feet by the Princeps Seniores of the Legio Infernus, the Reaver Titan toppled over, its guns blazing as it fell. Chrysaor groaned as he surveyed the carnage. As it fell, Sulis Vestra had destroyed 2 of House Vornhir's knights, leaving the western flank wide open to attack. Suddenly, Honoris Verax shook violently as an artillery barrage struck its shields. Chrysaor's crew were fighting a losing battle against the damage his Titan was taking, but they were still in the fight. Bringing his Bellicosa volcano cannon back online, Chrysaor prepared to target the Warhound Titans that were plaguing his flank. Yet, even as he calculated a firing solution, his MIU lit up with target locks. The closest Warhound overloaded the shields that protected the Legio Praesagius Titans. Almost immediately, a volcano cannon shot smashed into Honoris Verax's torso, fired by a distant Reaver Titan of Legio Infernus. More warning lights lit up Chrysaor's cockpit as his Titan reeled. Further shots found their mark, fired by the treacherous Tenebris Proles. Chrysaor ordered emergency repairs and somehow brought his Titan's reactor leak under control and stabilised the void shield generator. His emergency repairs did not last long. The Legio Infernus opened up once again, their firepower hammering the Legio Praesagius. The last surviving knights of House Vornhir were obliterated. Ekacatus' task force to the east took punishing fire that almost stripped them of their shields. Chrysaor's own god machine took the worst of the enemy's fire though. Honoris Verax was left barely standing by the fusillade of fire it had absorbed. Zalor fired, then fired again. The volcano cannon of his Reaver Titan, Igniculus, glowed red hot. The reactor of his Titan was overheating dangerously. Warning lights flared across his MIU. Zalor did not care. The enemy were holding their ground, the rest of the Legio Praesagius escaping into the night. Zalor had to destroy these last few war machines and continue the assault. To the east, Tenebris Proles was engaging Chrysaor's Warlord at range, hammering the Praesagius Titan with colossal firepower. Zalor could tell that Honoris Verax would not last much longer. The Reaver Titan, clinging desperately to it, was on its last legs too. Zalor fired into it as its shields collapsed once more, his shot hitting the Titan clean in the head. Unbelievably, the god machine stayed standing. A sudden flash lit up his MIU, and Zalor turned to watch as the void shields protecting the Titans to his east collapsed dramatically. Almost immediately, Ardenti Dominus fired on the warlord known as Ekacatus, obliterating half the war machine's torso and causing its magazine to explode. The explosion damaged the other Legio Praesagius Titans nearby, and Zalor grinned with feral delight as the warlord fell, then roared with unsuppressed emotion as Tenebris Proles finally felled Honoris Verax. There were just 3 enemy Titans standing. Victory was in Zalor's grasp. Venting plasma from a Titan's reactor, Princeps Helene turned Gearfalcon to face the Warlord Titan threatening to break through the Legio Praesagius lines. The traitor Warlord Titan was already partly accountable for the destruction of Ekacatus, and now was turning its many Gatling blasters on Deliverance. Helene watched in horror as Deliverance's shields blew out. Then, the Reaver Titan itself collapsed as it was targeted by Ardenti Dominus. The fire coordination of the Legio Infernus had always been good, but now they seemed guided by some darker power. Firing every gun she had at the warlord known as Genna, she managed to take down its shields, as Fortitudometer brought its guns to bear. The Nemesis Warbringer's volcano cannons and laser blaster hit the warlord in the head, sending shards of armour flying. Then the earth shook as the god machine fired its quake cannon, the colossal shell hitting Gehenna's right leg and blasting the thigh apart. Helene was about to cheer when she noticed the Warlord Titan turning towards her, and its Gatling cannons already firing as it fell. A storm of shots smashed into Gearfalcon's carapace, hitting the cockpit and legs. Helene barely had time to think before her Reaver Titan was glanced again, this time by Tenebris Proles. Warning lights flashing, Helene looked at her MIU. Fortitude Odometer had been laid low by the enemy warhounds nipping at its heels. Gearfalcon now stood alone. Helene prepared for her last stand. Zayla's victory was almost assured. The wreckage of 5 Legio Praesagius Titans now littered the battlefield. Just one now defied him, Gerfalcon. He checked his targeting array, but the enemy Reaver was taking cover behind a city block. Ardenti Dominus could not draw line of sight either, but Tenebris Proles could still see their target. Levelling its guns, the Warlord Titan smashed Gerfalcon's shields down once more, but could not fell the war engine. With a snarl, the Princeps Senioris ordered the Legios Warhounds to hunt down their prey. He needn't have bothered, as he watched an orbital artillery barrage plummeted from the sky towards where Gerfalcon stood. Zayla's MIU registered the Titan kill, and new orders appeared on his data screens. Legio Infernus were victorious. Chrysaor fumbled around the pitch black of his Titan's cockpit. He could not tell up from down, but he got the impression that everything was on its side. He had been thrown from his command chair as Honoris Verax fell, but he was still plugged into the war engine's MIU, his mind linked to its machine's spirit. Through the manifold, he could feel the Titan's life force. It was weak, but still there, teetering on the edge of oblivion. There was hope then. Reaching behind his head, Chrysaor began unplugging himself from the manifold. The input jacks that connected to the sockets in his head were fused in place, and he had to jerk them violently to extract them, leaving him with a splitting headache. He pulled the wires out that ran into his arms too, the pain of his Titan being replaced by the aches in his own body. He knew they were psychosomatic, but he knew that others were not. He had several broken fingers, possibly a fractured wrist. His uniform was wet, and he could smell the metallic tang of blood. The ground shook nearby. It was the footfall of a Warlord Titan. Chrysaor would recognise it anywhere. He scrabbled around blindly and discovered, more by luck than judgment, the access hatch behind the Titan's cockpit. Pushing himself up into the adjoining corridor, Chrysaor found a security hatch, unlocked it, and awkwardly pushed it open. The sunlight burned his eyes as he glared upwards at the colossal form of Tenebris Proles. Chrysaor did not cry out. He did not even move as the armoured foot of the traitor Titan came crashing down on the cockpit of Honoris Verax.